Hey guys, we're gonna go ahead and get started. It's been a while since we've done this. I think it's been like over a month or something with other things going on. The last thing that we talked about specifically was different types of debt and the philosophy around debt. We talked about how amortization works. We talked about how debt can either be collateralized, which usually is referred to as secured debt, or unsecured debt where there is no collateral. There can be lines of credit, there can be installment debt, there can be mortgage debt, is how those things break down. Does anyone have any questions about anything thus far that I can answer? All right. Just as a reminder for those that maybe haven't been able to be here, the whole reason I'm wanting to do this is just a reality of our culture and of world culture in general, is that we have to deal with this yucky green stuff called money. And we never talk about this kind of stuff. There's no place to really go to get education on this stuff. A lot of times, unfortunately, people learn through trial and error. And when you make errors in the financial realm, usually it's extremely unforgiving, sometimes to the tune of up to 10 years. I don't mind telling people this. I'm sure she didn't mind either. But Rachel and I have been married 12 years. Around the time we got married, she had went to school and had a couple of student loans that I'll just say people took over and then didn't appropriately pay. But Rachel has been able to be on absolutely no borrowing tool that we have used for our entire marriage. And that has just recently fallen off her credit report, some of those items. And part of that is some of those loans were paid and straggled along for years, but paid inappropriately. So it's not like the timer started 12 years ago. The timer started maybe about 7 or 8 years ago. And some of those things just, people think that bankruptcy is the great financial white slate clean. Sometimes it's bad financially to have those late payments because they stick around in your report for a very long time, which we'll talk about that when we get to report. But I guess the moral of the story is the financial stuff is extremely unforgiving. A lot of these details and things people just don't know and aren't aware of, and I'm thankful that I have had experience in a lot of these things, and just my interest in these things has caused me to analyze them and dig in a little bit. So that's the reason I'm doing this. But you guys are kind of the guinea pigs, because if I got done with this type of presentation or class, I'd like to offer it maybe to the community as a chance to make some new contacts and things. So now that we've moved beyond the philosophy around debt, we've talked about the different types of debt. We've talked about how amortization works. I want to look at a couple of very specific debt products, ones that oftentimes impact people significantly, ones that most people utilize in some fashion, or ones that people have been burnt on before and just do not understand, such as vehicle leases. I want to look at those. So I'm not going to look at every single debt product imaginable. I just want to look at a couple key ones. And then after that, I want to look at how credit reports work, what affects them, what drives them, what it means, how financial institutions look at those things and evaluate those things. And then, actually, I'm probably not going to build it into this module. I'm going to probably have an entire module on debt consolidation strategy, and then we'll move beyond debt into some other things. Okay? But today, what I wanted to talk about, and I wanted to allow it enough time to do it, is I actually wanted to talk about credit cards. Most people have no clue how credit cards work, what the point is of credit cards. Many people have had very bad experiences with credit cards, partly because of the nature of the product. Okay, but I have heard a lot of sound financial advice around credit cards that is just simply not accurate. It's not. Again, keep in mind the whole point or the whole approach in this study for me is we are stewards of the grace God has given us. I think we should be informed. I think we should consider how to use things, how to do things. And a lot of times that comes from just a godly way of thinking how to appropriately use what we have available as opposed to maybe one or two bad experiences. Sometimes people have one or two bad experiences and they feel they're qualified to explain. And a lot of times in the financial realm, that's just not the case. So a lot of times people have had bad experiences because there was a misunderstanding or there was a misutilization or there was a problem with self-control, self-discipline. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that particular thing is wrong in every case. Okay. So credit cards, some misconceptions is that they're evil. As I talked about in the very beginning, somewhat around my philosophy and things and approach towards these things is it's not evil. It is it's no more evil than a hammer is. A hammer can be used to kill someone. The hammer is still not evil. The hammer is simply the tool. Guns are obviously evil, but hammers aren't evil and credit cards aren't evil. Okay, but it's a tool. So to look at that now, I will get into that tool can come with because of the existence and the utilization of that tool again within our culture, it can create temptation. I mean, it can do that. But as the tool itself, I see absolutely nothing from a biblical premise as to why the use of the great plastic card is an evil practice, or is going to keep you out of heaven. Oh, absolutely, yeah. Now it is the mark of the beast. Okay.
You take the number.
It is, yeah.
Add it up and then multiply.
Yeah, this is the mark of the beast. I was told that in elementary school that one day we will no longer have credit cards because it will be, burned into our head and on our wrist and all that stuff.
If you take that number and multiply it by
Oh yeah.
right? Comes up to 666.
Yep. So I can't buy into the fact that they're evil. With any tool, again, the hammer in the hand of the murderer, they can come with temptation, but the usage of that particular tool, not necessarily a bad thing. 99.9999999% of people, I'm the other 0.1% apparently, understand that credit cards are a credit tool. And what that means is credit cards were invented to borrow money. That is not what they are. Credit cards, the intent was never for it to be a loan. That's not what their point was. It was designed to be a purchasing tool, to replace cash, to replace checks. That was its design. And the very nature of how it's designed by these banking companies, as you'll see here shortly, is to encourage its use as a purchasing tool. They don't want it to be a loan. I mean, keep in mind, well, as we'll get to, it's an unsecured product. They don't want to loan money unsecured with no collateral. It's not what it was designed for. It was designed to be a purchasing tool. It was structured for convenience and security. I was talking to someone this last week, and I'm always gonna step on toes, I'm sure, as I do this. But there are people out there that it's okay, but there are people out there that meticulously try to guard their identity. They're aware of identity theft, things that are out there, and there are people trying to maliciously do those things. But it's humorous to me a lot of times that those same people use personal checks. Because I was telling someone the other day, I'm like, do you realize the second you give that personal check to that 16-year-old kid at Kroger, they have your home address, they have your account number, they have your routing number, they have your signature, they have, if you're not too bright, your driver's license number, if you're a complete moron, your social security number, because I have seen people do that, put their social security number on their checks. They have it all. They're 16 years old. Do you realize when you set up your account with your utility company, how many people do you think have access to Duke Energy systems? When you set up your bank account, how many people do you think have access to your stuff? The government, if you have any type of income or anything like that coming in, how many people do you think have access to those computers? I mean, the information is out there, is my point. But the personal check is from a security standpoint and largely a convenience standpoint is nothing compared to the credit card. The credit card creates a irrelevant number in a way, okay? An irrelevant number that ultimately links back to a borrow on demand account. It was designed for security. It was designed for convenience. Many credit card companies, and people, when I tell people this, they're like, are you kidding? They make more money off of transaction fees than they do off of interest. What that means is that whenever, and a lot of people don't realize this, when you swipe your card at a merchant, okay, you go to McDonald's and you swipe your card, let's say your breakfast is $4, they are going to pay upwards of 3 to 5% on average of your purchase. A chunk of that goes to Visa or MasterCard. A chunk of that goes to the banking company that issued your credit card. I had a credit card trainer tell me one time, we would much rather a person use their card for everything and pay it off every month and never pay interest than have a person max out the balance, cut up the card, throw it away, and make minimum payments, even though it's at 16%. Because we make way more money off of constant transaction fees than we do off of the interest on that loan, especially when you take into our account our losses and our defaults. Because that person that cuts up the card may not be able to survive the end of the balance, and then we're just writing money off left and right. We would much rather have someone that utilizes the card as a purchasing tool, not as a credit tool, not as a loan. Okay? And I'm trying to show here that this is why it was designed, this is how they're designed and what they're used for. So when the tool is used that way, you can use the hammer to try to turn the nut. It's not going to be as effective, when it's designed to hammer nails in, If you use it the way that it's supposed to be used, it makes more sense. Some people think it can hurt your credit. If you have a credit card, it hurts your credit. That is not true. Okay. In fact, it can be one of the most effective tools to build credit if used properly, and I'll mention that in a little bit. Can they hurt your credit? Yeah. The hammer, you can bust your thumb. Again, that's not what it's designed for. If it's used appropriately and used correctly, it can be effective. Some miscellaneous details. First of all, it is a revolving line of credit. We talked about that. Okay? A revolving line of credit is money that you can take off and pay back on demand. That's what that means. It is money that you can access in a number of different ways, pay back. It is not a set loan with a beginning and an end. It's a revolving line of credit. It's unsecured debt. When that credit card company issues that to you, yes, technically they can file suit against you for the balance. They can go after you, but they understand that they are not holding collateral at their office to back up that debt, which is largely why the rate is so much higher, as we talked about. When there's no collateral there, it's a higher interest rate. There is no grace period on the due date. This is where a lot of people start getting into a mess. Well, if I don't pay my electric bill, I've got like 15 days, 15 days before anything changes. I deal with that obviously as a landlord. What's the grace period? How does that work? Everyone wants to know the grace period on everything. With almost any other type of loan, if you pay it within 10 days of the due date, sometimes it's the same amount without even a late fee. You don't get the late fee until 10 days after. Credit cards have 0 grace period. Okay? When you are 1 day late, you're getting hit with a fee, and as we'll talk about here shortly, they can completely change the terms that the credit card was issued on. A lot of times that's where people get into a mess with one late payment on that. Okay? It's issued with very minimal underwriting. This is another thing that gets people in a lot of trouble. I used to have so many customers at the bank that just were in a tizzy and were so upset because they were turned down for a loan. And, they felt like, well, the bank just threw a dart and didn't approve me, because it landed on no. Banks pay a lot of money and do a lot of analysis to try to determine if you are likely to pay your debt back. So when they say no, a lot of times they have a good underwritten reason. They either feel that your history of paying your bills is bad, they feel your income isn't appropriate, they feel the collateral maybe doesn't balance out everything. That's the reason for saying no. That doesn't happen with credit cards. When I was 18 years old, I got my first credit card application. I sent it the one-page application in. I said I worked at Kmart. I said I made, I don't know, $200 a month or something, and I got my credit card. Okay. Yeah, 400. Very, very minimal underwriting. Now, not only is it minimal underwriting initially, but sometimes they will then adjust your card based on your activity with no additional underwriting. You know, I mentioned to you guys that early on in Rachel and I's marriage, I was able to achieve what many Americans cannot, of a significant negative net worth. I did that. I mean, some people have zero, but I was able to go beyond. Well, that was largely why. I had a credit card that had initially made a decision on my income, but then because my payment history was good, they kept increasing my limit significantly based on nothing. I mean, there was no underwritten done, and that has tightened up significantly in the last probably 10 years. Again, as we'll talk about, there's been some major changes to some of those things to try to help people not get in those pitfalls. But, you know, I mean, very minimal underwriting. There's a lot of times nothing there. There's no collateral. They have nothing tied to it officially to back it up. It's based solely on credit score and history most of the time. Okay. Now, again, I want to say it's not just based on your credit score. When we get into the credit bureau, a lot of times it's based on your utilization of current revolving credit. I can't remember if I told you guys, but that credit report is usually takes all your debt and funnels it in one of three categories. It funnels it into mortgage, it funnels it into installment, or it funnels it into revolving credit. Okay. They can actually see, okay, Matt Parsley has $20,000 of revolving limit available to him. If Matt Parsley has a $20,000 balance, it doesn't really matter if Matt Parsley has a 750 credit score. They're most likely not issuing a new card. Okay, so it's based on your score, but also your history and your utilization of those type of products. Cash advances can be taken on credit cards. I don't know if people know that. There's very few situations I would encourage people to do it. But there have been situations where if there's an emergency, a lot of people don't think of that. I mean, if it is Sunday afternoon and you need money and you need cash, and if there is an extreme emergency, I mean, credit card is a good place to go. I mean, that is one benefit that you can do, but most of the time, that cash advance has a pretty high interest rate. It has an interest rate all the time.
We had a unique situation one time, as you know, we usually had older vehicles, and the banks won't loan on way older vehicles.
Yep.
It seems like it was a blue Suburban, that maybe it was a blue car, but anyway, it's like $5,000 or $6,000. It was old enough for bank wasn't going to loan on it, and on a credit card I've had forever, got a thing in the down, you know, free interest for a year.
And I'll get to that. That's a little different than a cash advance, but yeah, I know what you mean.
Oh, I thought it was a cash
No,
advance.
cash advances, I can literally go stick my credit card in any ATM in the United States, punch in a pin, and withdraw money, withdraw cash. But I understand what you're saying, and I'll get to that here in a second.
That worked out for us.
Right.
Just paid off the year we were done. But
But no, cash advances, it is actually a way for you to get cash out of an ATM if you need cash. I mean, I know a lot of you are thinking, well, why wouldn't you just swipe the card? But I've had a couple of situations where I've had customers where it made sense to get a cash advance. I mean, they needed cash because of the emergency of what was going on. A lot of people don't realize a credit card is a 30-day interest-free loan. That's pretty cool if you think about it, okay? And the reason it works that way is when you're in the middle of your cycle, let's say your cycle starts January 1st and ends January 30th, okay? Everything that you charge for that time frame is going to be billed on January 30th and due March 1st. So anything that you do, interest is not charged unless the balance continues after March 1st. That is when interest begins to be charged. So in theory, sometimes it's more of a 30-day. If you charge something on January 2nd at the beginning of your cycle, they cut the bill on, let's say, February 1st for simple math. That bill is due March 1st, okay? Interest is not charged unless a balance carries over past that period. A lot of people don't realize that. And that's very different than a lot of other lines of credit. If you get a standalone line of credit at the bank, the second you pull out $10, interest starts being charged daily. Not the case with credit cards. Credit cards are interest free. So as I'm going to get to as far as strategy, I would never, ever advise to pay interest on a credit card beyond that period. But there are times where, it's kind of nice if you need to put in that new furnace that's $1,500 and you make a decision, I don't know, maybe you have mutual funds that you're going to pull that money from. That money normally takes 5-6 days to get to you. It's a good gap filler. It's an interest-free gap filler. Okay? Convenience and security, I already talked about that. It is an extremely secure item to have. Visa and MasterCard cover your credit card significantly. I don't know if anyone has ever went on a trip and got to the store and got really upset because their credit card wouldn't work or their debit card wouldn't work. And the reason that you eventually find out that it didn't work is because MasterCard and Visa are actually monitoring your purchasing patterns. And when they see something out of whack, they shut your card down until you call. That doesn't happen with your personal checking account. Someone gets a hold of your checkbooks, they just start writing until it stops. Okay? Credit card companies, watch that. I remember when I worked up at Chase, I had this guy come in. He was big, burly dude. He came in overalls. He's a farmer. What's wrong with my debit card? It wouldn't work this last week. All this. I mean, he was so upset. Okay, sir, let me call him. I'll try to figure it out. And I remember calling, and I remember the gal on the other end just being so nice and so chipper, And she's like, "Can you ask Mr. Powell if he tried to buy a big screen TV in New Mexico this weekend?" And I asked him that, and I remember his face. He's like, "What?" And she's like, "If he's there and you can confirm that, we'll reactivate his card instantly." But he was so thankful. He's like, "I can't. How do they do that?" And I said, "Well, you don't normally travel into New Mexico." And they were able to catch it as it was happening and stop the purchase. Yeah.
A friend of mine, he goes to Florida every winter. Last winter, he went down there. When he went down, somebody had just grabbed his information up there somehow.
Yeah.
And they went on a little buying spree up there. From Greensburg or something.
Yeah.
No big deal. Well, meanwhile, he gets to Florida. He finds he gets a notification or something happened, and they get it shut down. Okay?
Yeah.
So this year he thinks, okay, I'm proactive. He calls the credit card company the day before. He says, "I'm going to Florida. I just want you to know that when I travel,
Right.
You start seeing my card move and so forth." Well, that's what happened the year before. He got down to Florida, and then his card shut off on him.
Right.
And when he called me. Anyways, this year he's proactive. He gets to Florida, and they still shut it down. He calls them up.
Right.
He's like, "What's going on?" They're like, "Well, we're seeing charges in Florida." He says,
Yeah.
"I called yesterday and told you."
Small side note, that is another benefit. Remember how I've said that I'd eventually get to the point that big banks and little banks have benefits? That's a benefit most of the time of a big card company. Like Chase credit cards, you can get online and actually inform them officially online of your trip and where you're going. And most of the time, it'll be all right. Now, I'm not saying that system is perfect, but if you can get a credit card from a small bank, and they may not have the protocol in place, but Visa and MasterCard are always watching it. If they see anything that seems out of kilter or out of design, then yeah, a lot of times they'll err to the side of caution than say, "Well, we think it's him," But again, your personal checks don't have that. Your cash doesn't have that. Your cash doesn't report to it's been stolen or it's being used. That's one of the huge benefits of credit cards. I mean, it's very secure, very safe. Okay, the interest rate on it as a line of credit works very similar to other lines of credit. It is usually a margin on prime. And what that means is the prime rate is the thing I showed the graph on. It can go up and down. It is affected by the government. Your margin is set. Okay. Most credit cards, if you get a good rate, is 3.5. Well, 3.5 is prime plus 12%. 12%. To give you an idea, when I get to the point of talking about home equity lines of credit, if you use a line of credit that is collateralized by your house, most of the time that is like prime plus 1 or prime plus. So big difference here, being collateralized by your house or being unsecured. But that margin doesn't change unless you're a day late. And that's what happens to people a lot of times. Second, you're a day late. There are typically provisions in there, which I'll show you here in a little bit, that says we can raise your rate up to 30%. Okay. So what happens then is that margin goes up. So prime right now is historically low. Prime over the last 60 years usually runs around 7 or 8%. So right now, again, your margin will never change, but if you have a credit card right now, it's very possible in the next 5 or 6 years that you'll watch the interest rate slowly tick up on that because prime will move. Your margin won't, prime will move. Payment calculation. They'll always charge a minimum payment. That is what you'll see on a credit card statement. And that minimum payment is normally a set amount, such as $10 to $25, or it is a percentage of the balance plus interest, whichever's higher. Okay? So in this example, let's say you have a $500 balance. First of all, they're going to do 2% of the balance, which is $10. Then they're going to do 1.5. I said, what if the interest rate's 18%? Okay? So for the month, 18 divided by 12 is 1.5. 1.5% interest for that month is $7.50. It's going to be $17.50. Or if that company's minimum is 25, it's going to be 25. If it's 10, it's going to be $17.50. Does that make sense? But normally the calculation is always a percentage of the balance plus interest. A percentage plus interest. Again, that's different than a lot of other lines of credit. Okay? Home equity lines of credit can be set up to where it's just 1%. Or they can be set up to where it's just interest only. But credit cards, in theory, the minimum payment is designed to have you chew away at the thing. It's designed to pay it down. Okay? Of course, that doesn't help if you just go out and fill the balance back down. Okay? So that minimum payment, as far as minimum payments go on a line of credit, that's not too bad. It's not the greatest if you're looking for a low payment. But again, I would never recommend that because if you're paying a lower percentage payment than that, you're never going to pay it off anyway. Okay? Also keep in mind that with this kind of design, the higher the interest rate is, the greater percentage of your payment goes to interest. Okay? And that's what a lot of people run into is they get buried in credit cards. They've got a $400 monthly payment and $380 of that is interest. And they get nowhere, ever. Because they're in, and a lot of times those same people are the ones that miss one payment, so their interest rate is 30%. So that, yes.
How long has it been now that credit card companies are required to have that little blurb on the statement that says,
2009, we could jump in ahead.
oh,
You hate it when they do that?
Yep. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, special offers. Credit cards have special offers. This is what Mom was talking about. A lot of times, credit cards offer you an initial offer. For instance, 9 months of your purchases are 0% interest. What that means is, back to our example, if you charge something and it goes past that interest-free period, they're saying it stays. It's 0%. So now you're talking about, sometimes a 12-month interest-free loan. So yeah, if you buy a car that you're planning on paying off in 6 months, sometimes credit card's the way to go. You were talking about an interest-free loan. Now that's assuming the vendor will actually swipe it as a credit card. If you pull cash off as a cash advance, a lot of times it doesn't apply to that option. It has to be swiped as a purchase. Okay. Sometimes you get specials for balance transfers. Again, that was part of what allowed Rachel and I to consolidate and do some things early on through that learning situation. Is we got an offer that I have never heard of ever again. We got 2.99% for the life of the balance. Those don't come along often anymore. I think I saw one a few years ago from a customer. But a lot of times what you'll get is you'll get 4% on balance transfers for 12 months. Well, in those situations, a lot of times you have a balance transfer fee. So what that means is you move over $1,000, you pay 3% then, right then. So 3%, you don't pay 3% for the year. You pay 3% then, and then you pay the interest. And I encourage people to think about that sometimes, because a lot of times they see, oh man, it's only 4% for 9 months, and I only have to pay 5% to move it. We'll start doing the math. You're paying 5% up front on the balance transfer fee, and you know, it's not always the best debt reduction tool, is what I'm saying. You know, sometimes it's effective, sometimes it's way better than what you have. If you're moving it from another credit card, it's a 30, it's way better, you know. But that fee is always going to be there, and then that offer is going to run out at some point. Usually those offers don't extend too much beyond a year, maybe 18 months. Rewards. This is the part that really bugs me when I hear people say that credit cards are evil. There's absolutely nothing good about them. To try to encourage their customers to use this as a purchasing tool, which is what it's designed for, credit card companies offer rewards. Most of the time, a card will offer between 1% and 2% on everything. Sometimes cards offer higher percentage for very specific purchases. So you have some cards that they'll do things seasonally. So in the fall, you get 5% on groceries and gasoline. In the spring, you get 5% on, I don't know, flowers and stuff like that. There's all different ways you could do that. I normally focus on what's the amount I get all the time. Of course, I route a lot of money through my credit card. So I actually have a card that gives 2% on everything. But you can find one like US Bank. If you have a certain type of checking account with them and have a credit card, you can get like 1.3%, which is pretty good on everything. Now, that is paid by those merchants. When you swipe it at McDonald's, that's where your rewards come from. And that's why some small businesses still put up a fight, not being too excited about accepting credit cards, because they're essentially paying an additional fee for the convenience for their customers. Businesses like McDonald's and all these big businesses have accepted it as a way of business. Of course, they've just raised their prices proportionally. That's what always drives me nuts. I go into Quick Mix and I'm just like, raise your prices 5 cents and don't charge a convenience fee for a credit card. It drives me nuts, you know. I don't want to hear that. I don't have to.
He is a hypocrite.
I am not a hypocrite. Some businesses, the convenience thing is important. Some other situations, you pay by check. Mortgage companies don't take credit cards because they expect you to pay your mortgage payment with a check or with cash or with money you actually have. Talk to you later.
You can go down to the gas station and run the air pump. You can put in a credit card.
I know you can. I love that. I expect that too. I'll get to that at the business point. If you get into business and can achieve a level where you care less about the convenience for your customers, congratulations. You have reached a fantastic level.
We've had this discussion.
The real nature there is in a contractual relationship. I don't know if I want to encourage someone to use temporary debt to pay their bill, because most of the time that will end. If someone's paying me their rent with debt, it's not going to last too long. But yeah, we've had a discussion. Anyway, rewards is free money. It is literally free money. On my credit card, which again, it takes a pretty significant amount of activity, but I probably get upwards of $4,000 of cash rewards a year. That is, I'll confirm with the accountant in the room, technically tax-free money. Okay, just check it. I don't tell you that. It's rewards. It's free money back. You can use it a lot of times for gift cards. You can use it for statement credit. A lot of people don't realize that. I've had customers before say, only gift card I can buy on there is some store I never use. Well, can you use statement credit? Yeah. Well, go buy what you want and then offset it with statement credit. You know, I mean, there's a lot of flexibility around that. You can have them send you a check. You can have them send you cash. You can have them stick it in an account. There's a lot of, we're talking about free money just for using the card as it's intended. Now, obviously, these rewards, 1% to 2%, doesn't mean squat if you're building up a balance and paying 15 to 30% interest, you know. But this is there to encourage the usage for which it was designed as a purchasing tool. Yes.
The office, we charge a lot and then just pay it off every month. But with the points that we rack up, we give our employees $50 gift cards at Christmas.
Mhm.
And I buy most of those with points.
Whose idea was
credit
that?
card.
Wasn't that your
That might
banker's
have been
idea?
our banker at the time, before he left yesterday.
That was something I used to tell business owners. I'm like, you want to give bonuses to your employees? Use a business credit card all year. That's what I do. I just ordered money, cash, in order to give my employees a tax-free bonus, essentially, in a way, just to say, hey, thank you. You know?
Well, that's why we get the gift card.
Right.
It's not a bonus.
Yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of neat stuff you can do. I mean, part of that's going to go towards our vacation to Disney World. I mean, it's free money. Free money just for using the card as opposed to a check or cash.
We also have, I was all excited about getting some free money, and then they wouldn't let me, if what we were gonna purchase, they wouldn't, they made, if I didn't write a check, they were gonna charge me another 3%, so I can do the math on that.
Where am I at? Right here. Thank you, Bernadine. You always want to compare that with some of these merchants that still charge convenience fees. You know, if you go to Quick Mix and they're going to charge you 4%, which that's the other thing that really bugs me. When I used to do credit card processing and know that he's not paying more than 2.5 to 3, but he's charging his customers 4. So now he's making money off of their convenience. You need to compare that. I mean, if you're getting 1% back, but for instance, my insurance company, one of the reasons that I like them so much, because again, my insurance is rather high, is for some crazy reason, they let me pay my premium with a credit card. And that's a big fat premium. It cost me $5 to pay my premium with a credit card. That equates to approximately 0.47%. So it's worth it to maybe pay 0.7% to get 2% cash back. I mean, yeah, you want to consider those things. I mean, I wouldn't recommend, and I've flat out asked people before on larger purchases, are you going to charge me any type of fee to use my credit card? Well, yeah, we charge 3%. Okay, at that point, there's no point.
I was sad. At
For
that
instance-
point, I had to go ahead and write a check.
Yeah, well, like Duke Energy. I pay Duke Energy, I think $6,000 a month or more. And I called them and say, can I just set this up to charge my credit card? Yeah, we charge 2.5%. Okay, forget it. Because at that point, it doesn't. But I mean, if you can find those areas where you can use the card and they're footing the bill essentially, and again, they may have adjusted their prices to account for that. But if you can do it with a card and there's no additional fee, it's free money. I don't know if I've said that yet. You know? And I mean, it's pretty neat. You know, those rewards. I mean, it can really add up. I mean, before I really had this business, we would average $300 or $400 a year of rewards. I mean, that paid for Christmas gifts or, I mean, whatever you want to do it with. I mean, but again, it's designed to encourage you to use it as a purchasing tool. Okay. Changes after 2009, Mom. 2009, when the recession started, there were some issues with credit cards that definitely were not designed to entrap people, but they kind of encouraged people getting stuck and getting into a mess. And one of those things and I'll show you an example of this here in a second, is your credit card, all the balances can be broken in very, very different rates. Okay? Let's say I do a purchase today, and that's going to be, this is assuming everything goes past the interest-free period. Okay, let's say I do a purchase today for $50, and that's at the standard rate of 15. But let's say I do a cash advance tomorrow where I need $50. Well, that's at the cash advance rate of 22. Well, let's say I got that offer in the mail where I can transfer balances for 3.99% for 9 months. So I transfer $100. Well, that's at 3.99. There's always going to be a section on your credit card where it's very clearly shows every balance and the interest being applied. The rules before 2009 was that the lowest interest rate line always got paid off first. Well, here's how credit card companies would get people, is people would do a balance transfer over to a brand new card. So they open a brand new card with a $5,000 limit. They move $5,000 over. That's not a good example. They move $4,000 over from another card at 2%. Then they start using the card. as they use the card, that balance would go in behind at the 18%. Every dime they paid extra to principal would pay off the higher rate, and it would start to be replaced and filled up by this 18% rate, okay? In 2009, with a lot of the various regulations they passed, that changed. Now, the highest interest rate on a card is always paid off first.
By law.
Yep. So here's what you're looking at. And I am sorry, I tried to find a way better example than this without X's and stuff, but this is what you'll see on your credit card. You'll see all these line items and their appropriate percentages, the expiration dates, the balance that's subject. I mean, it explains really well. But like I said, used to before 2009, if you paid an extra $100, you would watch that lowest interest rate slowly disappear and that high rate just sit there. You know, whenever I did that consolidation many years ago, that's the way. I mean, I did that consolidation and I cut up the card and threw it away because I wanted nothing to go on the card. But even that card actually had an annual fee of $150. That annual fee even got financed and went behind the low interest rate. So the low interest rate would be paid off, the annual fee would go behind it and be charged the standard interest rate. So this is what you always see on the card, and there can be 8 different things. I mean, depending on what promotional APR you use, balance transfers, cash advances, all that kind of stuff. But the highest interest rate will always be paid off first. Okay, that's one of the changes. One of the other changes is they now have to show a lot more disclosure and warning people what will happen if you only pay the minimum payment. So many people that I dealt with, it was farther back, even before 2009 at Chase, just, they were like, why am I getting anywhere on my minimum payment? I mean, they didn't take the time to really look to see what that minimum payment consisted of. They thought if I make this payment for 5 years, it'll be gone. That's not the case a lot of times. So now they have to show you this, which is like a hypothetical projection. And they have to show you, if you make this minimum payment forever, it will take you 112 years to pay off this, and that's what they show. And you will end up paying $271,000 on your $19,000 debt. But keep in mind, it's good that they show this because they didn't used to. Okay? Or if you wanted to pay it off in 3 years, you would need to pay $757. You know, it's a good thing. But that was one of the changes that came in 2009 too. These credit card companies, by law, had to show hypothetical projections and warn people, if you pay the minimum payment, this is never going away, ever. And in theory, it literally would never go away, because that's saying if you pay $381 for 112 years. Well, guess what happens next month to that minimum payment? It goes down by 50 cents. And then the month after that, it goes down by 50 cents. It goes down by 50 cents. And people, if they just keep going down with the payment, that time frame extends because they never pay it off. Because this, keep in mind, this is based on largely a percentage of the balance. It includes a little bit of principal and mostly interest. Okay? Here's one of those warnings that I mentioned. They have to show some of the disclosure. If we do not receive your minimum payment by the date listed above, you may have to pay a late fee of up to $35, and your purchase and balance transfer APRs for new transactions may be increased up to a penalty APR of 29.24 variable percent. That's if you're 1 day late. Pretty much the credit card is. I have actually called for customers before and got one do-over. I mean, if that ever happens to you, if you have had good payment history, you could possibly call and get a do-over, but they won't do it a second time. They'll leave it behind. So it's almost in a way, I mean, if you mess up a credit card, it's messed up. I mean, there's almost no fixing it. Credit card use and strategy. I would only ever recommend anybody to use a credit card when you have cash in the bank. Use it for purchases that you would use a check for or that you would use cash for. The only thing that would really change that is in the case of a special offer. If you have a special offer that lasts 9 months at a low interest rate, only use the credit card if you are sure it can be paid off in that time. Okay? Because if you get into the interest charging period of a credit card, in my opinion, that's not the best use of your financial resources. I mean, that is a lot of money at that point to interest. But it could be somewhere else. You could take that balance and stick it somewhere else at a lower interest rate. Don't wait for the bill, pay it off regularly. I pay off my credit card probably 6 times a month. I mean, I just get online and I actually track everything, but I pay it off like at least every Monday, sometimes midweek, because I just hate having the balance. Well, when you're doing that, I don't even ever get near the interest calculating period because I'm paying off past balance, new balance is adding, and I'm paying that off, you know. I don't see it. I think with a credit card, if you truly are using that for cash you have in the bank, it should be a little more proactive of a product. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. But I'm saying if you are to a point where weekly cash flow isn't a problem for you, it doesn't have to be. But for most Americans living paycheck to paycheck, I think an important way to avoid temptation is pay it off way more regularly. Because what people are going to run into is they're going to use a credit card for cash they have in the bank. They're going to get to where the bill comes and their bill's $500 and they have $200 in the bank. That's again where people start to get into issues. Never have credit card balances exceeding 30% of your aggregate limit. That directly is credit report advice. Okay. Almost the moment. So if you take all your credit cards, all your revolving debt, and you add the limits together, what I'm saying is never have balances greater than 30% of those limits. The second you do, it does start to hurt your credit. Okay? The second that you do, credit reporting agencies start to think this person has access to this much money and they're starting to use a lot of it. They may not be as good of a credit risk, so we're going to lower their credit score. That's what they do. Okay? So my advice is always to never, ever, that's another benefit, in my opinion, of paying it off more regularly. Okay? If, for example, you know, this creates kind of a funny phenomenon with young people. I've had young people who are 18 years old. The only credit thing listed on their credit report is a $400 credit card. Okay? At one point in the month, when their balance is $350, their credit scores jump. A week later, after they paid it off, their credit score shoots up over 700 because the credit reporting agency is trying to determine, is this person using money they have access to responsibly or not. So I always used to tell young people, I'm like, if you get a $400 credit card, don't you dare use it for more than $100. Use it for gas, pay it off. But at that point, it becomes a very effective credit builder. But just general strategy, don't let your credit card balances be over 30% of your limit if you can, obviously, if you can afford it.
So you're saying they would have let me do the purchase that I wanted to do instead of waiting for the statement because it was a large purchase and I knew I had money in the bank, that I could just go in and pay it.
Well, it depends on, again, your aggregate limit. If what you're telling me is you have one credit card that's $10,000 and you were going to use $8,000, I would pay it off very quickly. Because again, for that short time, your credit reporting agency will start to be like, this person out of nowhere just used 60% of the revolving limit they have available. We need to inform banks that they may go to, that they may be strapped. That's the whole mentality of the credit reporting agency. They may be strapped for cash. You know, we need to be
because in my mind, I'm almost wait to the statement comes and they pay, and I just didn't realize.
And you are right. I mean, strategically, it's hard to say because it's interest free. You know, I just told you guys it's an interest free loan. You know, so, but with this in mind, it will mainly have a negative effect from repeated exposure. But what I'm saying is if you have a $10,000 credit card and that's your only credit card, that could be your entire revolving column in your credit report. And at any given time, that reporting agency could snap and adjust your score, and it could be based on that factor. I mean, it could lower your score. So, I mean, I would always be careful. And that's another benefit, too. Along with that, you know, a lot of people again, financial advisors would say, get rid of your cards, close them down. Well, and again, some of that deals with personal self-control and self-discipline. My advice is never, ever close a credit card account. Ever. For the same mentality. So, for example, I had a Discover card 10 years ago. I don't remember what I had for it. Okay? It was gone 10 years ago. Cut up the card, threw it away. I don't get statements. I don't get nothing. But at the end of the day, on my credit report, that $10,000 credit card builds into my aggregate limit. It is money that I technically have available. So as I actually use my credit card that I use, it compares to numbers including that extra 10,000. So from the credit reporting agency's perspective, I have access to this much money and I'm using this much at any given time. Okay? If you close out all those cards, I have actually seen people before. It's the worst thing they could do. You have a person who has two $5,000 credit cards maxed out. Okay? They are motivated to fix their credit. They leverage all their money towards credit card number one. They get paid off. When they pay it off, what is their debt to credit percentage at that point? 50%. Guess what they do? They close the card. Now what's their debt to credit percentage? 100%. Worst thing you can do. And I tell people, do not close that card. As long as there's, now again, there's other factors. Some cards have annual fees. I'm not saying keep the card open, pay a $50 annual fee or whatever, But if it is a free card, my recommendation, as long as it's not going to be a temptation to you, is leave the account open. And most of the time, credit card companies will leave it open for a long time, and eventually they'll close it out due to no activity. But their hope is always that you're going to come back and use it. I think I still get Discover cards every year on my account, updated cards. But not every year, every time the last one's expired. So I cut them up, throw them away, and don't think any more about it. But that account is open. Not to mention, just from a resource standpoint, if I ever absolutely had to use it, it's there. I could order another card and use it. Okay? Never let a balance go past the interest-free period. I would never recommend that. If that is going to happen, the first time ever it's going to happen, talk to someone or figure out a different way to do it. I mean, honestly, that is, in parenting, I always think about the process of parents letting kids learn and everything. And I've honestly thought from a financial standpoint, the one thing I would tell my girls is if you ever get into a point where you can't pay off a credit card balance, you need to talk to me immediately, because it can snowball so fast and get out of hand. So, and that is the unforgiving thing. Horribly unforgiving. Okay. If the temptation is too great, don't have any. I mean, credit card, while I'm trying to show that they're not an evil thing, they're not necessary to survive in our financial culture. You can use cash, you can use checks if you have to. You can use a debit card. A debit card has all the same security and convenience of a credit card, but it's backed up by real cash. Whereas a credit card is debt. So if the temptation's there, just don't have any. It's not a big deal. But what I'm trying to show is there's a lot of benefits you will miss out by not having it. Be smart with reward opportunities. If you commute to work, find a card that gives 5% on fuel. I mean, those things are out there. When I started buying a bunch of supplies from Menards and stuff, find a card that gives a greater percentage. I've gotten to the point where I'm fine with just a flat 2%, but there's cards out there that give 5% towards who knows what, towards groceries. I mean, I knew some people that got as detailed where they had multiple cards. They had their gas card, their grocery card, and their Christmas gift, their whatever card. I mean, do the math. I mean, there's a lot of benefits there that again can result in a lot of free rewards. So. The only other thing I wanted to mention is there is a product called a secured credit card. A lot of people don't know about that. It is one of the only tools I know available to rebuild someone's credit. And the reason being is credit is one of those funny things that it takes credit to build credit, but you can't get credit if you have bad credit. No one will loan you any money. So other than going down to Superior Auto or a buy here, pay here place and paying 30% on something, a secured credit card, and I want to make us aware of this because we may run into young people that need this. A secured credit card is you walk into a bank and a lot of times you hand them a check for $300. They issue you a credit card, no questions asked, no underwriting, because now they have collateral. See, if you default, they have perfect collateral backing up your car. But it still functions in all the same way. They report it to a credit bureau. If you make your payment, if you're lower on your limit than 30%, all of that factors in to your credit score. And a lot of times, many of them have good behavior conversion. Be good on your card for 18 months, no questions asked. We'll convert it to a standard credit card and we'll send you your money back with interest. I mean, it's a really, really neat product. Now, a lot of people, 95% of the people I ever presented this to weren't disciplined enough. You got to get the money up front to make it happen, But it is something that can help rebuild pretty significantly. It can be pretty effective. So, any questions? That's pretty much all the details. I mean, I think a lot of that stuff people don't understand. Like the first time I heard, I had suspicions that credit card companies did not want you to just rack up debt because the rewards thing didn't. And the first time I had a trainer say that, I'm like, I wondered that. Because, I mean, if you start doing the math, they can get 20% annualized rate of return, or they can get 2% on every single purchase over and over and over and over again every month up front. I mean, again, do the math, and it works out pretty good in their favor. If you're revolving your card 10 times over in a year, I mean, think about that. Either 18% on a $1,000 card or 2% over and over and over again on, you may use that $1,000 limit, but you may do $7,000, $8,000 in purchases in a year. And they're getting 2% upfront fees. It makes more sense for them. American Express, actually, 63% of their revenue comes from the purchase transactions. Not the interest, the purchase transaction fees. Oh, huge, yeah. American Express is kind of their own. See, when U.S. Bank does card, they contract with Visa or MasterCard. American Express is its own monster. Merchants hate American Express. That's why you can't get it anywhere, because if McDonald's, well, McDonald's is bad, but McDonald's probably has their own terms. If I sign up for credit cards at storage, I will get charged maybe $2 maybe 2.25% for any Visa or MasterCard. If I want to accept American Express, it may be 4%. And then on top of that, I'm paying a monthly fee for the merchant service. So that's why a lot of times it ends up being 3 to 5%. Well, American Express is 2% higher. So merchants hate it. And I'm amazed that they function so well as a business, because their competitors are better. I don't know. I don't know how American Express is such a massive company, really. I think where they really make a lot of their money is they have some pretty aggressive rewards cards. I mean, they have travel cards and stuff that you pay a hefty fee, but I mean, if you travel a bunch or if you do something specific, you can redeem a pretty significant percentage of
Discover's kind of higher than cost of the vendor more.
Yeah, Discover, I think, is kind of it's like American Express Junior,
Yeah,
sort of.
because I had a bunch of cringe when we get to Discover.
Yeah.
It's like, oh.
It's not as bad as American Express, but yeah, it's kind of its own.
Because Discover has those reward points and stuff.
Yep.
Those come from the vendor, from the merchant.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they pay that.
Oh yeah, all that's paid by. And see, that's always my point to people is your meal at McDonald's is only $5, but it's $5 whether you use cash or a credit card. Why not use a credit card and get 1 to 2% back? Yeah, that's what I mean.
Otherwise you find.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's the whole idea. You don't want to finance your coffee and biscuit. But if you're using it like a purchasing tool and paying it off, why would you do that? I route everything I can through a credit card. I mean, thing that bugs me to death is utilities. If I could run my utilities through a credit card, but all my supplies for my business, my insurance for my business, everything. I mean, everything I can. I wish I could route mortgage payments to my credit card. I can't do that. But it's just, all it is a conduit, because I mean, I pay, like I said, I pay it all. So I've never paid a dime of interest on a credit card that I've used in that fashion. I mean, you don't want to do that. So, any other questions? I know some of this stuff doesn't apply to you guys. I think it's, you're gonna run into someone that may have questions, and no one knows this stuff. I didn't know this stuff before I got into banking and I mean, no one, a lot of people in banking don't have a clue how this stuff works, you know? But how many people are using some type of card? And I just think knowing some of those details can avoid the pitfalls of some of those things. So I know David Ramsey, I think he is no credit cards, period. Which again, I think a lot of his advice is stemming off of the general temptation that most of the public has, and that makes sense. But I don't like saying that they in themselves are wrong, because I think they're an effective tool if you are able to use it in the correct way. So. All right, if there is no other questions, my voice is spent for the afternoon.
Yes.
I'll close this out in prayer, and then we'll be done. So let's pray. Dear God of heaven, Lord, we thank you always for just everything you provide. We thank you for the ability to think and to reason. Lord, that you have made us free will beings, and Lord, it is so much more of a blessing to know that we can choose to glorify you, that we can walk the path that Jesus walked, and we can glorify you, Lord, in our lives, and just pray that might be first and foremost in everything that we say and do. And Lord, we know that many people out there endure trials and tribulations in the financial realm as well as other realms. I just pray that we, as Christians, would always be ready to provide support and show compassion to these individuals, to do everything that we can, Lord, just to express the love of Christ towards them. Lord, as we start a new week, I pray that for effectiveness, I pray, Lord, that we can be lights in the darkness. Lord, I pray that you might present opportunities to us if they are there, and that you would give us the wisdom, Lord, to seize those and begin to demonstrate Christ to them. Lord, I thank you for the love and the needs that you have provided for this congregation. I pray those might continue to be used effectively for you. That's things in Jesus' name.
So we're back to your reach next week.
Yes.
And I got what's up.
Is that all right?
Make sure we. Sure that.
If we ever show up and don't know what's going on, Dave will fill in for us.
Yeah. Dave, he'll do anything I need him to do.
Take your shoes on.
No, Rachel got hers next week. I was doing hers, so she was sick last week. So he was giving her rough time.
Just stand like this. Stand like this. Like this again.
Because I guess she got, I don't know how many days she had next
I will please
That's not really.
and I have to watch them like this, and then I come and talk about TV,
I
and
was.
I talk about how to
No, I laid there. If I didn't
there.
use
So I
stuff,
took
off.
most pictures, then penny at
Stay
the
away.
tomorrow.
As soon as I did use the stuff, I'm laying there. You know, but I'm tired. You know, it's like I want to sleep, but I can't. But man, it really opens up your throat and stuff. So it's good in the morning. You know, take a big hit in the morning.
Okay,
Do
cars.
a hit before I preach today.
Not 2 cars yet.
I know. I'm gonna have to, I'm not tomorrow going out and buying a car, but I have my girls and I have, so I have about 5,000 invested in that. That I could do a little bit.
Right,
I'm
that's
wondering
fine.
if that would be the way to go with the first.
How old is your car?
I don't know, that's what I'm thinking, you know, like.
Usually if
Friday.
it's 7 years or newer, you
Yeah.
can get an extremely good rate,
Okay.
like better than the vehicle. But if it's older than that, a lot of times banks won't give you an actual auto loan. So now your options are unsecured loan, that may be 12%. Or I would at that point recommend a loan.
Oh, can I have you?
So it all depends on the age of car. But if you're 7 years or newer, I
You did, I'll show you.
check with the bank first. Assuming, a person will get approved for that good rate. But I know US Bank, they get the same
Oh,
rate
you need some on your
for
list?
7 years old to a brand new car. It's like 2.99% for 3 years. Or
Don't turn it, don't turn it.
4% for 5 years.
You got plenty there.
And most of the time, that's gonna be a little better than 401k.
Is it better?
I know,
It
my
works.
dad
Yeah,
was.
that's a good
I
start.
don't do it on speakerphone.
Your car is becoming a little harder just because you're paying a whole bunch of. And as long as you're buying it, you use it for. Are you commuting? Why wouldn't you lease?
No.
Or even, just because the mileage is. But really at that point, it becomes a comfort level. The longer term the loan, the longer you're at the upside down. I mean, you're upside down for the loan. If you have a 5-year loan, you're probably gonna start breaking even about 3.5 years. If you had a 7-year loan, it's probably gonna be 5 years.
I really could.
But
I really
I'm
could.
not even thinking.
I'm playing ball downstairs.
I'm not thinking it's gonna be not because you drive away the shine so fast. I mean, it's, for example, you take a I mean, a brand new one of those things is $38,000. One that's 3 years old is probably. I mean, that big, and that 3-year-old vehicle is a little more maintenance. It's got issues. Yeah.
I will never stop in a robot. I'm a dinosaur that you ran away from, remember?
Yeah, they're not-
You know, Kaylee! Na 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 boo boo, na 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 boo boo. I'm a dinosaur and only these chairs, little chairs.
I mean, I know your 401k may have an option one of the rates.
Oh wait, Ellie, you're putting your socks on.
Maybe it's a very low rate, but most of the time those rates are fine plus. They don't seem to necessarily. And see, one thing, I've seen again, I've heard comments before that.
I know.
I think it's down and put it on the counter. I just heard comments
Penny, Penny. Sometimes you need to come out and like pretend you're hunting for food and stuff while I'm sleeping and stuff.
Self, but I still see it as an administrative kind of thing.
I forget what changed to, but it's one that you know, it's not some fancy stuff, but it's different.
JP Morgan or something like that. Or they switch to
It's switched-
Edward Jones or Merrill Lynch or.
I forget which way it switched, but it switched to one that.
I have no issue with it. The loan feature is phenomenal on 401ks. A lot of people don't realize that option. What I would recommend avoiding
I'm going to bed
actually
now.
withdrawing. Because when you withdraw it, you're paying a penalty.
I won't come after you this time. I'll just stay here.
But no, I mean, that's a nice alternative.
I really
that's another nice part.
This is
About a brand new
Okay, this is
car.
I'm the dinosaur,
Brand new
okay?
car.
We're both the dinosaurs. We're both the dinosaurs. Just sleep, sleep. You don't get them.
And sometimes they get a take on it.
Don't do that.
And that is awesome.
So you take that down?
I know what he's
Sometimes those, if you go new, I would always check with.
You stay here while I go hunt. No, I hunt with you. No, you get to hunt you get to hunt for the very first time tomorrow. Remember,
Best deal on
you
used
keep
is
escaping,
bank
but
and the car
not
dealers
after you
bidding
find it,
against each other.
remember.
Well, sometimes the car dealers,
food for you at home.
one thing I'll get to with used
Do
car
not
dealers is one of the worst.
But then you're napping.
Is hands.
No, I'm not. I'm running around hunting for
Somewhat
food.
an unprofessional used car dealer in credit
He
report.
does escape, and I
They'll
sort of
reach
see you
out
escaping.
10 different
Don't go
times.
afterwards.
They
Do
kind
not
of
go
sell it as,
after
let me do it for
And
you.
then I have to
Well,
go find you
they'll
a
find
food and call you back.
Your,
Pretend
credit
you don't
application
see me.
to 10 different places, they all
Hey,
hit your credit.
run.
You get 10 pages on your credit from different institutions. So to the credit reporting agency, it looks like you're desperate for money and no one will give you money. And I'm surprised there haven't been lawsuits around. I mean, I don't know of anyone in town.
Here's some bear.
I don't think that does that, but I'd always be cautious. That's why I would, a lot of times I would check.
Here's this. I have been paid.
Used car, new car dealers don't have that. Because they are an official financial. They take their single application and they're the ones that do the checks as that organization. One organization is checking. And then checking with the companies, there's one thing.
I can do this by myself.
Tim Schnelly faxes your copies and that go into US Bank and Union Savings and Loan, First Merchants, Fifth Third. I mean, that's how you have all these institutions.
I told you to stay.
He's at US Bank.
Dinosaurs. You don't. All dinosaurs don't have to listen to other dinosaurs. Penny, now you and Ellie are the dinosaurs. I don't want to be a dinosaur.
Pretty soon they fax back US Bank, where it's better than the car. So the car company.
And I can get behind them.
And so, pretty soon they come back with them. Well, they beat it by like 4% or something. I skill and they do it one more time and then they write across the top before they fax it. Let's see you beat this one. Remember that?
See, a lot of people don't realize dealerships, it's almost funny, like working for US Bank. That's one of my children. Working for US Bank, I had my rates in the branch system. Well, US Bank had an entire dealer finance division that works specifically with dealers. And a lot of times they essentially sell a wholesale rate. And the dealers mark it up, which they're allowed to do. I mean, it was almost funny. When I looked at Goodwin Brothers, I remember having a couple guys come in saying, I have cash, how good are you? And to me, as a young salesman, I'm like, worse. I mean, auto dealers, companies, they make just as much money out of financing as they do selling cars these days. It didn't used to be that way. So, yeah, what he's saying is they may present you with a 4% rate. They may have that wholesale at 1.5%, and they've marked it up, which is fine. And but there can be something there. I mean, if you actually say, well, my bank would, I'm checking my bank, they give you a good, it's very likely that, well, can we just bump it down a bit here? I mean, that's how they can do
What was
that.
funny is we went home that night with their offer. But talked to him, and so he got us an offer. We went back up there with it. So, we can do it at US Bank for this. And so then that put us in this bidding thing. And, but it was kind of funny because poor Ray Skillman, they didn't have a chance. We couldn't get the loan.
It just made him go through
That only happens for,
See how long this takes to get down to that.
That process only happens for very unruly customers,
Yeah.
just trying to get the business with the light.
Time on their hands and, yeah.
I know in the branch system, it was not easy to get, I mean, get an override on a rate happen less than 5% of the time. I mean, in the branch, that doesn't happen. In the dealership, again, they marked it up X percent, and they could adjust it however they want.
in this tower?
The one on the left,
Okay, just making sure. Put it in the-
I always forget that one on the right. So that's what I would, I don't know, it's up to you at that point. That's what I do. There's a lot of peace of mind that comes with an vehicle. You chew up a new vehicle really fast.
You're in the industry and you see the parts, it's kind of like, there's some good old ones that have shown that they can do 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, and
You hear those recalls every day for this or
We need to check, I got it, we need to check, and thing from Amazon saying that our dehumidifier is being recalled for smoke and fires. So I don't think you got any of those.
yeah, I have like 3 or 4 of them.
I'll forward you this email.
Yeah, if you don't mind. I got this other one through, did we get that through Amazon? I thought we got it through Lowe's. Because I got the first 3 through Lowe's. I thought I ordered the same one, but that's not a cheap dehumidifier either. That's like a $220 dehumidifier or something. Because it has the pump.
He's doing good. He's in Virginia now.
Is she coming home for Thanksgiving?
He thinks he may have a couple days off.
Well, you try to say, hey.
I will. Thank you, Dave.
Probably not a US bank.